On this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast, David and I talk about the rumors that's been going around about CarGurus. We look at 2019 numbers for Carvana. We say a quick goodbye to Jack Welch, and we have a fantastic conversation with Jeff Cowan. All that and more on this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast. Welcome in to episode 036 of the Modern Dealer Podcast. My name is David Farmer with Entice, and with me, as always, is David Bertoncini.
Coming in from strong, Mr. Farmer.
Yes.
Coming in strong. Love that big intro. How are you, man?
Well, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm a little sore. I'll go real fast and tell you. I ran the Skyway.
Oh, good for you.
10K over the weekend, and I've realized running 6.3 miles on a reinforced concrete bridge is painful.
I bet it is.
My bones, I feel it in my bones, man. At 45, I'm like, oh.
Now, the Skyway, it's like a 45-degree angle.
It's a 4% grade, although it doesn't, or 5% grade, doesn't sound like a lot.
But it was enough.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
man.
I bet it is.
As you're running up that thing, it's like, man, a 5% grade, you feel it.
Yeah.
You definitely feel it. And then coming down the other side, but did it, done in the books. There's a guy that died out there.
No.
Yeah, it was on the news.
Goodness.
They said, we have a medical emergency. It was at the end of the race, but I guess he made it to mile 5 and
so it was over the
and
whole
died.
thing,
Over
beginning
the
to
whole
end.
bridge, from Manatee County to all the way
Very
to Pinellas
cool.
County. So did that. So I'm a little sore, but I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm
feeling
rock and
good.
roll.
Modern Dealer Podcast, episode 036. Speaking about going across the bridge, one of the things I did when I was in San Francisco for NADA, like 5 or 6 years ago, is I walked the Golden Gate Bridge from end to end. That was very cool. So now every time I see the Golden Gate Bridge, which you see all of the time, right? Especially on TV and movies, you always remember, hey, I walked across that thing. So that's very cool.
Interesting fact, real fast on Golden Gate Bridge. You know how often they paint it?
They never stop.
They never stop painting the thing, man. They start and then they gotta start again.
They go, what is
That's a
it?
good government contract to have right there.
I would like that. Yeah, you bet. All right, cool. So we got a ton of good information to go into today. We have a special guest that is going to be part of the Modern Dealer Podcast. And today, instead of having one main topic other than our guest, there's a few things that's been going on in automotive that I wanted to share. We wanted to share with the Modern Dealer Podcast. But before we go too far, what are you drinking today there? A little Walmart action?
Sam's Club, Walmart, Wally World, how I roll. It's so as I had bulletproof coffee last week from Black Crow, I saw this on sale at Sam's Club yesterday, and I was like,
cool.
Why don't I pick up some bulletproof coffee? This actually doesn't taste bad. It's cold because today is like 77 degrees
It is. It
here
feels
in
like
Florida.
summer out there, doesn't it?
It does feel like summer. So I went with the cold brew bulletproof coffee. Not so bad, Sam's Club. Not so bad. What you got there? You got something fancy today.
Well, no, it's not necessarily fancy, but it is a coffee of the day, right? So this is a Caribou Coffee. So Caribou Coffee, I actually did a little bit of research about Caribou Coffee because I thought maybe there's a cool story there. And there's actually a few connections to automotive with Caribou Coffee. So first of all, Caribou Coffee is the only Rainforest Alliance certified. They focus on sustainability. A lot of really cool information, a lot of really cool YouTube videos that they have on their website kind of talking about that. So if you're interested, of course, you can go to the Caribou Coffee website and see that. But researching the company a little bit, where I thought there were some interesting pieces of information. So the founder, his name is John Puckett. He was working as a management consultant for a Boston-based firm called Bain & Company. Now, what's kind of cool about the Bain & Company reference there is they did a study on digital retailing, basically, last year. And it was... the study was the future of car sales is omni-channel, and I actually used that study as part of a presentation that I put together, talking about the different things that they found in this study of the future of car sales is omni-channel. Just a couple highlights on that. They researched 5,000 car buyers. They saw that 50% of car buyers begin their process online. They found that the typical customer switches back and forth between online and offline 4 times before making a purchase. So it's very interesting to understand that consumers are engaging not only online, but they're engaging offline. They have that eyeball to eyeball transaction, right? And then another thing that was interesting with this study is that they said that more than 25% of customers are potentially online purchasers only, but that also is extremely forward-looking, where right now only 2 or 3% of customers are actually wanting to complete that online that transaction online, but potentially up 10 years from now, that might be the way of the future.
That was a lot of information just to get out of one cup of coffee.
So I just wanted to get that out there. And that's only one piece
Bain
of it.
Company.
So that's Bain & Company. They did a great study. So if you're interested in that, there's more information out there. Another thing that I thought was really interesting is the founder of Caribou Coffee's wife worked for General Motors.
I saw that.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the last thing is about Caribou Coffee and how it relates to the Modern Dealer podcast is that their first Caribou Coffee shop was in the town that I was born in.
Minnesota?
Edina, Minnesota.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah. So
small world, Mr. Farmer.
I just kind of picked out Caribou Coffee, and I can tell you, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Not so bad. I can't really, this is fair, but it was kind of a deal, which I'm not usually the guy to go for the deals, but hey, it was there, it was available, and it was quick and fast and easy. So got a lot of stuff to get into today. So,
so another thing that just happened, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, Jack Welch is a corporate America's manager of the century. He died, unfortunately, at age 84. The reason I brought this up is it's not really related to the car business, but Automobile University, right? You're listening to, I listen to books. I listened to this book, Jack Welch, Winning. I think this came out in 2003. It's a great management book. He talks a lot about his career at GE. He took over GE, I think, sometime in the 60s or 70s. And took it from a company that was really struggling into a huge behemoth of a company he talks about that entire story in this book. I love the book. I highly recommend it. Probably top 10 business books that I have read is this book, Jack Welch, Winning. 2 specific things that I really remember from the book is he talks about Six Sigma, which is Six Sigma is a disciplined statistical-based, data-driven approach and continuous improvement methodology for eliminating defects in a product, process, or service. So that's kind of I didn't want to go too deep into what Six Sigma is, but it's a very cool process, a way of thinking.
Sounds a little bit like the Toyota Kaizen.
Yep, quite a bit. Yep.
Constant small improvement, and that's very obviously based on a lot of statistics and data information that they have in the assembly process of automobiles in Toyota.
Yep. Absolutely. Another thing that I learned from this book by Jack Welch is when you're looking at hiring people, he kind of developed his own hiring process where he only hires A players. So if you're a modern dealer, you're a manager, you're looking at adding people to your team, he recommends don't hire that B player, don't hire that C player, and you know that when you're interviewing these people, right? If it is going to be somebody that's going to be, the top 20% salesperson for you, or assistant service manager for you, F&I manager. If they're not an A player and you don't feel like they're going to be an A player, pass. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the ways he was able to turn a big company around like GE. So anyways, Jack Welch, sad to see you go. If you're interested, that's a great book, and he's written a bunch as well. All right, so something else there's a lot of good automotive content, a lot of things happening in automotive this week. Another one is Waymo.
No.
I thought that was kind of cool. They raised $2.25 billion. So, they don't make cars. They build the software for autonomous driving. So Waymo, if you're not familiar with them, they are a company that's owned by Alphabet. Alphabet is Google's parent company, if you're not familiar with them. But Waymo launched as a Google self-driving car project back in 2009. Its self-driving vehicles have driven more than 20 million miles on public roads. Waymo operates a ride service in Chandler, Arizona, outside of Phoenix, where it has more than 1,500 monthly active riders. So these are autonomous driving Ubers, right?
I've been to that town, but I at the time I had a rental car and we didn't order an Uber, but I guess if I had ordered a ride share, it may have been one of these.
It could have been a Waymo vehicle, or you could have got a
cool.
Waymo autonomous driving vehicle. So that's very cool. But a lot of great information about Waymo. But the reason I thought this was important is to think about all of the money that's going into automotive. We talk about the modern dealer, right? And that's one of the things that's going to change this industry is going to be the autonomous driver or autonomous driving technology, right?
Mm-hmm. So 2.25 billion, and that is, and today's March 3rd. So are we talking from January 1st to March 3rd?
No, well, this was a specific raise, a round of funding.
Okay.
It was led by a Silicon Valley venture capitalist firm that put this money into this company. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much money goes into automotive, right?
Yeah.
Far-reaching. Speaking of a lot of money in automotive, another piece of information that is kind of topical is Carvana recently released information about Q4 2019, and they sold 50,000 vehicles in Q4 last year. It's a big number for them. It's a 81% increase from 2018 to 2019. That means that, let me see if I got the units sold. In 2018, it was 94,000, so just shy of 100,000. 2019, you got 127,000 plus 50. So that put them on 177,000 vehicles, almost doubling total units sold. But at the same point, lost a lot of fucking money.
That's a lot, dude. $500 million.
A lot, right?
Yeah, once they tack on those numbers, it's going to be over $500 million.
Yeah, so 82 million loss quarter Q1, Q2 146 million, Q3 238 million, 468 cumulative just for Q1 through Q3. Last quarter, $125 million in loss. So I mean, that's a lot. That's losing a lot of money.
They may be calling it WAFO for a loan or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, can you guys write us for $500 million here?
Yeah.
We're losing our ass in this game. That's crazy, man. That's I guess people still do want that eye-to-eye contact.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so this is, is this proving the exception, or is this proving the rule that people want to have people in the process?
I believe it's the people in the process, because we're not in the car business, we're in the people business.
Yep, absolutely. A few other pieces of information of note. Q4, the company opened one new vending machine in Q4, bringing its year-end total to 23. 50,370 sales, and then a loss of 125 million. Now, alongside earnings, Carvana issued its outlook for the current year. Management expects that the online platform will achieve retail unit sales of 255 to 265,000. So that's going to be for 2020. That's what they expect. That's going to mark a growth of 44 to 49% over 2019. Similarly, revenue is expected to increase at the rate of between 42 and 47%, translating into a projected 2020 top-line revenue of $5.6 billion to $5.8 billion. I mean, so it's a big company. There's no question about it. Their top-line revenue is huge. I don't know what their anticipation from a loss standpoint, but that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of losses too, though.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
it is
a lot of money tied up in that deal.
So we're 15 minutes in. We're burning through a lot of information. So hopefully our Modern Dealer Podcast audience is appreciating some of this information that we're bringing. Before we go into our break, so we did speak. We do have a speaker. We have a guest that's going to be on the second segment, Jeff Cowan, bringing some good information around fixed operations. But before we get there, one other, we can even consider this kind of a main topic for today, is CarGurus, David. So the reason CarGurus has been in the news recently is that there's been, so how this was kind of brought to my attention is looking on Facebook. There's a whole bunch of negative Facebook comments about CarGurus from a lot of dealerships across the country. And as I was seeing these negative comments for CarGurus, I dug a little bit deeper and found, as this was kind of unfolding, that they ended up having a roundtable discussion with some top players from CarGurus, including their COO, addressing some of these big concerns that dealerships was having with CarGurus. And so I found a video recording of this webinar that they had with their clients, and covering some of these, some challenges where dealers were asking questions like, are they partnering with Carvana? Are they taking my leads and funneling them to other retailers, specifically Carvana? Some of the big issues that they had concerns about was, how these cash offers for trade-in vehicles was being funneled into Carvana from VDP advertisements. They have these CarGurus badges that they had on dealership VDPs. I'm going to kind of get into some of that, some of what these concerns are and how they kind of addressed it. So if you are a CarGurus dealership, I would be curious to find out what your perspective is of CarGurus. Is this somebody that are you getting a lot of leads from? Do you feel like they're helping you sell a lot of cars? Are they adding value? Or did you get caught up into some of these challenges as well? So let's get into it, okay? So the first one is, let's talk about these badges. So Carvana created this little technology that dealerships could put on their vehicle display pages, their VDPs, that would show the price of that vehicle, whether it was a good value, a fair value, or so on, right? So just like if you go to CarGurus, you have that pricing gauge. Well, you're able to take that pricing gauge and put it on your VDP to really create some validation that the vehicle that you're selling was a good deal, a great deal, or a fair deal. Now, the challenge with that badge, and where they kind of got into some hot water with some dealers, is that a customer could click on that badge. They click on that badge, they would go to that vehicle listing on CarGurus, and then it would be able to show more information. Now, on that page, there was a web form where a customer could submit a lead from the CarGurus page that would go to the dealer. No harm, no foul, but what was happening was that as soon as that customer would fill out that form, CarGurus would start to market to that customer other dealerships' inventory.
Ooh,
so now you got
a big no-no.
Yeah, big no-no. So now you got a dealership that's spending thousands of dollars to put their vehicles onto CarGurus. They utilize the technology that they create in these badges, and if a customer would go through it and engage with it, complete a lead, now CarGurus started to advertise to their customer other dealerships' inventory. It's like, man, so there were definitely some challenges around that. So during the, and I don't want to throw mud at Carvana, they addressed why they did it, what they did through this webinar, and it was the lead form was something that was actually requested by dealers. So they said, okay, yes, we can do that. We can add a web form on there, a lead form on there, and there's from what they say, it was kind of a snafu that would enable the remarketing to that customer to be able to address some of those concerns. So they stopped doing it as soon as they got negative feedback from their dealers, and they kind of moved on. So that is kind of the all of it from A to Z with the badges. But I am going to include the link to the blog post on the CarGurus website, so you can sit through and you can listen and hear some of the addresses, the way that they address some of these concerns. Two of the other things that they talked about during this, and I know we need to get rolling here, but so CarGurus, like any technology company, and they just happen to be the biggest from a third-party website. They got 38 million active monthly visitors to their dealership website, which is a big number. I guess it's the largest. I don't know the other numbers right now, how they rank, but they claim that the 38 million puts them at the top. But one of the things that they saw is that customers are looking for ways to sell their vehicle, not necessarily only to a dealership, or try to sell their vehicle on Craigslist, person to person, peer to peer type of sales. And CarGurus, because of all of the engagement, they wanted to test out, would it make sense for them to be able to provide a way for a customer to sell a vehicle directly to a dealer. So they created this cash offer process. So kind of like the instant cash offer from Kelley Blue Book and Auto Trader, or the true trade-in value from TrueCar. Of course, Carvana has the same thing where you can get a value, transactional value right there. They're trying to offer that as well in one of these tests. And I guess what was happening is they were advertising that they would buy vehicles on dealership vehicle display pages on CarGurus with the Carvana logo on it. So they were advertising on something a dealership was paying for another dealership. Yeah. So again, it was a test. They go into more specifics about it. But this really brings up a good point, is that dealerships are looking at new and different ways to acquire inventory. That's one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit, these online trade appraisal processes, how dealerships can compete with dealerships like that. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick Entice commercial, because we actually just released a new feature for our Trade Maker tool, allows a dealership to complete the communication loop and provide an express cash offer directly to consumers on your dealership website. Our technology allows a customer to upload photos of their vehicle, and as soon as they complete the process online, there's an email that goes directly to people that are approved to put values on cars. An appraiser can reply right from that email with the express cash offer, which will send that express cash offer certificate directly to a consumer, which can be done really within minutes. So a very cool way to be able to take control of providing express cash offers for your customers right from your dealership website, without having AI involved or outsourcing it to any other third party. So anyways. CarGurus, there's another big scenario with them, David, was when a search results was low. So, for example, this is another issue. They were including vehicles that were they considered delivery vehicles. So Carvana. So if Carvana delivered to a specific area, a customer was looking for a specific vehicle, if the search results only brought back low results, 35 or 40 vehicles, then if dealer partners like Carvana delivered to that area, they would include those vehicles in that search results page. And sometimes, based on the ranking, they could outrank for customers that were, that had those. So again, it looked like they were really cozying up to Carvana.
Feeding them some leads.
Yeah. There's a lot of negative feedback around that.
And the dealership was paying for it.
So,
real sweet there. That seems like a not a good business practice, but basically, so in this meeting that they had there, they were
addressing those concerns,
addressing the concerns, and explaining like this is why we did it. And
yep. Yeah, it really made a whole lot of sense. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of negative conversation out there, but this really, I think, addressed those concerns. I think they did a really good job with it. So, good on ya, CarGurus. So, I tell you, David, we're 25 minutes into the first segment. We got a guest. We do have a guest, right?
We got a guest we got to get into. So, let's gear up for that, and we'll bring him on here in just a minute.
Yep, and then we're going to take a break. We're going to have our conversation with Jeff Cowan. We'll have a nice introduction. We'll have a great conversation with him, and then we'll wrap up afterwards. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for Jeff Cowan. Stay tuned for our wrap up after that.
Buying a car should be easy. Say hello to Shopper Express, the way car buying should be. With Shopper Express, once you find your car, you can get our best price up front with no hassles. You can personalize your individual payment by selecting from financing or leasing options. Select your desired finance or lease term, adjust your down payment, even research all the available offers, rebates, and incentives, and then apply them to your deal. You can get a personalized trade-in value from Kelley Blue Book instantly. And in just minutes, you can get an express cash offer for your trade-in that's good for 7 days. Plus, research and select available protection plans. You can apply for financing and even get your credit score without your Social Security number. Configure your entire purchase transaction from anywhere in just minutes. Schedule an express delivery, so when you're ready to buy, you can be in and out in an hour or less, or request to have your next car delivered to you. Enjoy a better way to buy a car with Shopper Express.
Welcome in to a very special segment of episode 036 of the Modern Dealer Podcast. My name is David Farmer. With me is David Bertoncini, and we have a very special guest with us. I'm going to do a quick introduction, a little bit of background of our guest, and then we're going to get into a little conversation. So we're super excited to do that. Jeff Cowan is a motivational keynote speaker, sales training instructor, author, and the creator of the Jeff Cowan's ProTalk, North America's #1 service department sales training, recognized as the creator of the modern day walkaround and selling processes for service departments. Jeff has over 40 years sales experience and more than 29 years training automotive service departments. Welcome to the podcast, Jeff.
Well, are you kidding me? It's a real pleasure to be on your guys' show. I mean, I feel honored to be a guest, so thank you very much.
We feel exactly the same way, to be able to bring in industry leaders like yourself. You know, David and I, our experience in automotive has mostly been in sales and operations. To be able to bring somebody in that has a ton of experience in fixed operations and service departments, and really talk about the modern dealership from a service perspective, I think is going to be great to be able to share with our audience.
Well, yeah, I'd love to give you any information that you guys need and talk about it, because as you noted, I've been doing this for a long time, so it's obviously more than just a business or a job. It's a passion of mine. So anytime anybody wants to talk about fixed operations, service, and sales, I'm all in.
Good stuff. So it looks like, as David had mentioned, so about 40 years ago, you got into automotive. Tell us your origin story, how you got in.
All right. Well, just to correct you, because and I hate to start off the interview that way, but 40 years. I'm not willing to admit I'm that old yet. It was actually 32 years ago. And to you guys, 8 years doesn't mean anything, but when you get to my point, it will.
Yeah.
So what happened was about 32 years ago. I noticed that there really wasn't any formal sales training for service advisors. And being a service advisor, that's really what the job is. Most of the training back then, if not all the training back then, was how basically to write up a ticket and not get in trouble with a warranty or mislead a customer or whatever. So knowing that, I created a selling program, took it out on the road, and at the time, nobody was doing walk-around training. Nobody was doing sales training. Nobody was, had word tracks. Nobody was doing workshops, any of that stuff. So, at the risk of sounding a little bit pretentious, I literally created this whole fixed operation service advisor sales training niche. I've been doing it, with that longer than anybody else. We've seen more than most people have seen, and we've been very successful with it. And I think the reason we've been very successful and been allowed to hang around so long is the main driver of that is that I've never stopped freshening up the content over the 32 years. Because obviously 32 years ago versus today, two totally different situations. So if I did like a lot of sales trainers do, and that is, you create a process and you ride that horse until it falls over, it would have fallen over a long time ago because it wouldn't have worked. Because what worked 32 years ago in total wouldn't work today. There are some consistencies. We still talk about walk-arounds and that stuff. But the way this customer walking through the front door, the way you handle them, the way you talk to them, and the way you get them to remain a customer is way different. So I created the program, took it out, and pretty much instantly became a hit because from the beginning all the way through to today, it's been infamous for doing several things. It increases sales, it increases effective labor rate, it increases customer retention, it allows you to have perfect survey scores, and the icing on the cake, which everybody loves more than all of that, believe it or not, is it totally eliminates disgruntled customers and heat cases, if you will. So that's what we've done, and again, going back to the refreshing thing, to give you an idea, in the last 10 years alone, because the customer really made a big change in 2008 with the recession, we've made no less than 9 major changes to our content and the way that it's presented, just because not the dealership, but the customer coming into the dealership has changed that much. So it's a lot of fun. We love what we do, and I can't wait to do more of it.
Awesome.
So one of the things that we like to talk a lot about on the Modern Dealer podcast is really looking at our perspective of automotive. So I grew up in the car business. I feel lucky to have been able to have a lot of different positions within automotive. I started working with David Bertoncini back in the mid 90s or mid to late 90s. So we were selling cars back then, and we also like to look at how the car business has changed from the mid 90s all the way through, how the internet has changed the way the customers are interacting with dealerships, how they're going through the purchase process, and, things like the recession, how that has changed the industry. So I'd love to kind of get your perspective of some of the major shifts that you've seen, let's say, over the past 20 years. How has the internet, for example, changed selling service, the service advisor role? And I'd like to also get into, as a kind of a second question, is how is technology now really starting to change the ASM process? I know that there's a lot of companies now trying to look at, automated ASMs with kiosks and so on. But first of all, kind of your perspective of what are some of the major shifts in the role of an ASM over the last 20 to 30 years?
Well, to answer your first question about how did the internet, affect it? Well, the internet really changed it, and the reason it did is for a number of reasons. Number one, prior to the internet coming around, and this took longer to reach the service department than it did at any other department. So we're only talking about here probably the last 12 to 15 years. Prior to the internet, the only way people could judge whether or not you had great service or not is they would have to get in their car, drive down the street, and depending on where your building was placed, what it looked like and was written on the sign, would largely determine whether or not they'd give you a shot at doing business with them. If they gave you a shot, you typically had 5 to 10 minutes to prove to them that you could deliver what they needed in a timely fashion for a fair price. Okay, so and so since that's the way that it was done, most people wouldn't test out more than one or two, maybe three different places. They would land at one, and even though in a lot of cases they were getting very, very poor service, they just assumed if out of the three places I went, even though this is still bad, it's the best of what there is, and they kind of surrendered, and that's what they did. So a lot of people, prior to that, got customers just because the customer, they would go to two or three maybe different places at most, maybe four, and they would select the least of the worst. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where today, and this is what a lot of people miss, by the way, when it comes to service, where today what the internet has done is you can get on there and what good service is before you get there. I mean, you can YouTube good service, good service departments, and you'll come up with 100,000 different things where people can prove to you what good service is and what it isn't. So now people are choosing you based on what they're reading about you and finding out about you and the videos they're watching on the internet. So which has been really good because it's forced everybody to up their game, because now instead of having to get my car and drive to three different places, I can get online and check out literally hundreds of places with the click of a button. The second thing the internet has done, which is even more important, is this. Prior to the internet, people would come in, they would have a concern, and they would have to totally trust you on your recommendations. This is what I need, and this is what's going to run, and is that a fair price, and whatever. But all of that's changed, and here's what I mean. It's often, I like to ask in my workshops when I hold them, if you were going to go out tonight, let's say you two were going home tonight, and you got there, and you decided that you were going to go out and buy a new product or service, okay? Before you ever left your home, what would you do?
Yeah.
You'd Google, right?
Yeah.
Now the question becomes, everybody knows that, but now why are you Googling? Well, you're Googling to find out who's got what you need. You're Googling to find out, what's it take to get that product? How much is it going to cost to get that product? What the system is and the like. Here's what everybody seems to be missing in the auto industry. So does the service department customer. Well, how so? Well, if I woke up this morning knowing that my car needs some type of preventative maintenance or repair, what I do is I Google it. When you Google it, you're typically led to one of the 5 or 6 major blogs written out there that are written by master technicians. And on those blogs, this is what's important, on those blogs, the customer will be told that what you're looking at is a quick repair, not going to take a long time, not going to cost a lot of money, might even be free because it could be covered under warranty. But on the same blog, they'll be told that what they're looking at could be a very big job that takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and based on the number of miles you have, don't be surprised when you get there if they don't tell you you need this, this, and this, because you do. So now the customer knows what they need, how long it's going to take, and the like. They then Google, this is where it gets real interesting, who does that. And on average, your name, a dealership's name, a service department's name will pull up on a page with 9 other places they can go, but they, for some reason, showed up on your drive. They picked you. Yeah. Now, what's big about this? This is what's huge. It's never been easier to sell a customer, never been easier to get the retention, the survey score, the effective labor, and everything, simply because the customer is already sold by the time they get there. They know how long it's going to take, what they need, what it's going to cost, and the like. They're already sold. And the big question that people have when we get there, this is where a lot of people make a mistake, again, is I like to ask this in the workshop, what do you think the biggest question is that somebody has when they come to your service department after they've Googled you? And typically people say, how much is it going to cost? Nope, they know that. How long is it going to take? Nope, they know that. What is it I need? Nope, they know that because they Googled it. Their biggest question is, do you know as much as I know about what I need because I Googled it? Right. And I like to share a point with people and say, look, let's say for instance that you go out or you're online because you need a new TV. So you discover after Googling that Samsung has the best TV. And so you check out 3 or 4 sites, look at the reviews, and everybody tells you this is the best TV, but if you want 10 more pixels and 10% better sound, buy gold tip HDMI cables are $100. And so everybody says it. So now you go to the store and the salesperson is not talking about the gold tipped HDMI cables. What's your impression of that salesperson? They don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. So it's never been easier to sell a customer, work with a customer than it is right now, because by the time they get to you, they've already picked you based on the information they found online. They already know what they want, what it's going to cost, how long it needs to take. Never
So
been
what's
easier.
great about that is we were actually, in our last episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast, we were talking about the Google Dealer Guidebook, and it really focused more on sales, or at least the parts that we were discussing in the podcast. And one of the things that was brought up is how the customer has changed over the last 5 to 10 years. And one of the big things that we know in retail sales is that 5 to 10 years ago, customers would visit more than 4, sometimes up to 5 on average dealerships before making a decision to purchase a vehicle. And now how the internet has changed the retail sales customer is they're doing that exact same research online. So if they come to your dealership, they've already decided you are the dealership I want to do business with. And what happens is dealerships are either going to live up to those expectations that the customer has, and they're going to end up purchasing a vehicle there, or they're not going to live up to the expectations, and then they're going to be forced to go someplace else. So just like in the service department, it's your business to lose when that customer comes and shows their face at the dealership. So that's a very interesting point that you bring up.
Well, it's exactly true. It's been my experience, and mine and my trainer's experience to go out to service drives, and because I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but we're the only people that I know of that do the training the way we do it. There's others that claim they do, and I'm not bashing anybody, but no, I've never really met anybody that does it really the way we do. And the way we do it is we stand side by side with advisors on the drive as they're writing up real customers, coaching, critiquing, role playing, and writing service. The reason I bring that up is because I think we have a better understanding of what this advisor is going through. That said, and the reason, again, I bring this up is because we find most service advisors talk their customers out of what they came in to buy, and they spend more time doing that. They talk them into buying what they've already decided they want to buy, And that's one of the big reasons the customer retention is falling through the floor, because these customers, if everybody online is telling me I need this stuff and I go to the dealership and you say you don't, then I don't think you know what you're talking about, and they're going to the aftermarket. And here's how I know that. I work in the aftermarket. To me, a service drive is a service drive. So if it says Pep Boys on the outside, or Chevrolet, or Ted's Independent Service Department, it doesn't make any difference to me. It's a service drive. And the customers are running in droves to the aftermarket because the aftermarket is not afraid to say, yes, you need this, and it costs this much. Where the people at the dealership don't seem to want to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it goes back to, the idea that most people have is dealerships are way too expensive, and they're going to try to sell you things that you don't need. I think that's the perception. It's the same thing from auto dealers that we're from a retail sales standpoint. That we're fighting from a car salesperson, the reputation that we have. It's a reputation thing that we have to deal with when customers show their face at the dealership.
You do, but it's our fault. At the car dealership, it's their fault. They don't do anything to try and sell who they are. And as a matter of fact, let's talk about that myth you brought up a second ago about the car dealerships being more expensive, because it's a myth. And so where did the myth start? The myth started with the non-car dealerships. Why? Because somebody said it and they just drive it home. Where in actuality, having worked in the aftermarket like I do, on average, that non-car dealership service department is 7% higher than a car dealership.
Yeah.
It's all perception, And the problem we're having with it is, and the reason we keep getting further and further from the ball is something you brought up a second ago, is technology. The car dealerships are being led down the wrong path. They're buying all this technology, assuming the technology is going to make the sell for them. They're assuming the technology is going to build the relationship with the customer, and the technology can't do that. I mean, we're 100 to 200 years away from it being able to do that. The technology is there to make you more efficient and the advisor more efficient so they can communicate better with the customer. You brought up something a second ago that I saw when I was at NADA on the floor, and I've been aware of it for 18 months prior to it, and that's the service advisor kiosk.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid to tell you right now, dead on arrival. If I was the car dealership, would I have one? Yeah, I'd use it for night drops and early bird drop-off. But let me just ask you a question. Okay, if I put one of these out on the service drive, like 2 manufacturers are promoting their dealers do as a first, so when the customer, after they buy the car, after we did all this stuff to buy the car and we jacked them all up about the dealership, their first experience is going to be with this kiosk. Okay, not a person, but a kiosk. So I go into this kiosk, and the kiosk pulls up a thing and says, "Hey, welcome, Jeff. We're glad you're here. Would you like to get your oil change for $49? Would you like to get the premium service at $109, or would you like the super duper one at $149? Which one do you think they're going to push every time?" And I can back this up because there's been at least one manufacturer that I know of for sure who tested this out, and the national average went from 1.1 hours per repair order up to 1.2. Well, you said, well, they gained a tenth. Well, number one, 1.2 still keeps them below the national average. And so why did they get the tenth if this stuff doesn't work? Because the machine was doing something, at least one thing that the advisor wouldn't do, and that was asking for the sale. But if you leave it up to the customer, they're not going to be impressed. I can't build a relationship with a machine. And these dealerships are looking for the magic ticket, and the magic ticket is their service advisors. I'll throw some stats out here at you. I'm working on a project right now with Amazon, and it's a pretty big project. It's not necessarily car related, but it's a pretty big project. And let me throw some numbers out there. Did you know that 86% of all sales made in the world today, including the United States, still require eyeball to eyeball, face to face, or voice to voice contact? 86%. We just had the biggest Christmas season we've ever seen. Yet 90% of the sales that were made for Christmas presents was done face to face or over the phone, voice to voice. Only 10% was bought online. Amazon is only responsible for less than, I don't know the exact stat, but somewhere between 8.9 and 9.2% of retail sales. I mean, so it's still, we're in a people business, and that's where people need to put their resources. Would I have the technology? Absolutely, because it's going to make me more efficient and make me more able to communicate with my customer. But is it going to get the sale? Is it going to build a relationship? Give me the survey score? Get the retention, the effective labor rate? No. And if you ask these people that are building those things, they can't prove it otherwise because they don't have it, because it's not done.
So the customer's not going to fall in love with AI then, right?
No, they're not going to fall in love with that, just like they haven't fallen in love with online reservations. I mean, everybody's all jacked up about online reservations, yet less than 25% of the people that make a reservation for a service shop do it totally online without human interaction. Multi-point inspections, they're in love with those. I wouldn't work in a place without a multi-point inspection, but most people don't know how to present them, and most people don't know how to ask the person for the money. The multi-point inspection, you can't hand it to somebody and say, "You want to buy this?" It's the same as AI, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, what was it, 10 or 11 years ago, there was a company called MPI, which did not mean multi-point inspection, by the way, in Las Vegas, but they created the MPI. At that time, the national average for hours per order and customer pay was 1.8. All right, you were told if you bought MPI, you get an instant 5/10. Here we are 11 years later, and the national average is 1.3. It fell 5/10. Why? Because we stopped talking to the customer.
Okay, so one of the things that we like to talk about a lot too, this is the Modern Dealer podcast, and really trying to kind of address things that are forward-looking. We talk about some of the forward-looking companies that's in automotive right now. Carvana, their name gets brought up a lot. Vroom, their name gets brought up a lot, and then CarMax. There's another company, even though that they're kind of both online and bricks and mortar. But from a Carvana standpoint, they're touting that we sell cars. We're just not car salespeople, and they have these not kiosks, but the car vending machines, right? Where you don't have to deal with a person to purchase a vehicle, but even though they are selling a lot of cars, they are actually continuing to just bleed money. I think last year alone they lost like $500 million. So they've not proven out that customers really want to remove the eyeball to eyeball. I think they're really proving the case that you need to have a person there, just like you're proving out the case from a service advisor standpoint, that the relationship is what's valuable. It's the communication that's what's valuable, and the technology really should assist that communication, not replace it.
Oh, yeah. If you take a look at Carvana, I mean, it's impressive when you can say things like fifth largest used car dealer in the country. Okay, well, they sell 89,000 units last year at a loss. Okay, the thing they'll talk about is the cars that are returned, but let's stick with the 89,000. All right. So to me, it's and how many millions of units were sold last year? 13 million. Okay, so they're a drop in the bucket. My bigger point is, let's take one of these bigger groups. You mean name them, whether, and I don't, so I won't name names. I won't call them out. I won't make them feel bad. But just take any one of the top 5 or 10 dealer groups out there that have 100+ stores. That automatically makes them, they automatically have more locations than Carvana. So if they ran a national ad campaign the way Carvana did, and they nationally branded their dealerships under one name, and they said, come to us and see our human vending machines, and we'll deliver a car anywhere, and they put the human interaction in there, I would think that they would blow the 89,000 number away. The reason these large groups aren't doing it is because, for the life of me, I don't understand why a company doesn't understand branding's it. And the only one that's had any branding nationwide is AutoNation, and they've not done anything with it.
Right.
I mean, if I was advertising with AutoNation, I wouldn't be on there saying, hey, we're AutoNation, come to us. I'd be on the AutoNation saying, you've been in an AutoNation store? Because if you go to one in Oklahoma City, it's just like the one in your backyard there in Indianapolis, Indiana. And what does that mean? That means when you come in, you're going to be greeted by this person, and that person's going to do this, and this person's going to do that, and our technology is going to allow you to do this. We can find any car from across the country, from any one of our 300 dealerships, and send it right to you guys. And our people are going to, negotiate the best deal possible, blah, blah, blah. If they did that, Carvana, they would tower over Carvana so big and so boldly it wouldn't even be funny. I would go on record as saying I think they would double that 89,000 and be the number one person.
I agree wholeheartedly. Using the process as your marketing message, it's something that we've talked about quite a bit, and that's really what my company Entice does for dealers. Is it allows them to take their process, the process of purchasing a vehicle, the process of scheduling a test drive, or configuring a deal, getting an express cash offer for a trade, getting pre-approved for a vehicle loan. It is easy. It's faster. It's done, and it's part of the process, and the process then becomes that marketing message or the branding message.
Well, it does. In AutoNation, if you go to them, they'll fight back and say, well, we do have a consistent process. And if you do go to all of our stores, which I question, you do all the stores, you get the same experience. So let's just assume for a second that's 100% correct. What good is it if you haven't told anybody that's what it is?
It's like waking up.
I mean, I can tell you right now, my wife has the absolute best lasagna on the planet. I mean, there's just nobody even comes close. I mean, we went to Italy and they wanted to make her the prime minister of Italy because somebody tasted her lasagna. So why does not everybody know that she has the best lasagna? Because outside of me saying it in places like this, nobody knows.
Right.
Well, I know now, so I'm going to be asking for you guys to FedEx me some. My last name's Bertoncini, so I'm going to be asking for some FedEx lasagna over here in a minute. You actually brought up something really interesting. Going back a few minutes, you had mentioned a lot of customers watching YouTube videos. The content in the YouTube videos, your experience of dealing with service departments and advisors for so many years, are you mostly seeing these dealerships utilizing their YouTube channel for the dealership for that content, or are they just using their YouTube channel for basically advertising $29 oil changes?
They're mostly using it for car sales, but when they do use it, they advertise it for the cheap oil change, which again doesn't make any sense to me because the very customer, the average car dealership's only set up, their service department over a 10-year period is set up to be able to handle about 40% of the customers they sell cars to. I mean, that's a fact. Okay. So if that's the case, why would you want to advertise to the customer that you don't like the most? What do I mean by that? You guys have sold cars. Who's always who's the hardest to deal with? The one that you didn't make any money off of. Who's the easiest one to deal with? The one that pays full price.
Yeah.
So why would you advertise and try and bring in the person that caused you nightmares? Why wouldn't you try and advertise good quality service, which is what they bought the car from you for in the first place, and do that? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
You were saying that some of these blog writers that are master mechanics are writing blogs, but do you see some of these master mechanics actually utilizing YouTube that work at a dealership and say, hey, I'm David, I work at AutoNation Toyota, you're going to, when you get your vehicle repaired, I've been doing this for 30 years, you're going to come see me. Is there any examples that you can think of stores that are just shining, that are crushing it?
No, and there's probably a couple of reasons for that. One is if you advertise and make the brand the actual technician, then people come in, they don't want to talk to the advisor. So nobody's doing that because you really don't want to take the advisor out of it. I got to be very careful with what I'm getting ready to say. So I'll say it this way: most technicians, although, and I mean this sincerely, are some of the most, if not the most intelligent people in the dealership because of all the schooling they've gone to, the technical background. I mean, these are smart people. These are people, if they went to Harvard Law School to graduate with 4.0, I mean that sincerely. All right, but a lot of them have never had classes in communication skills, so their ability to communicate to the customer is not there. So it doesn't mean it couldn't be there, but it's typically not there. So the advisor is the one you want to come into. I think a dealership would be smart if they get on there and they walk through with a YouTube video and say, hey, my name's Jeff and this is Jeff's dealership here. I just want to walk you through our department here and show you the 15 different technicians we have. Did you know that 10 of our master technicians? As a matter of fact, there's Stan. Stan, you've been with us what? How many years? 20 years? Stan's been 20 years, you know. And so how do you get these guys working on your car? Well, what you do is you come over and you talk to one of these 4 people, which are service advisors, and they know how to get the information from you to the tech so we can fix your car right the first time, every time. You know, if you did something like that, I think you'd really have something. Because that's another issue I think that's being missed in a car dealership. You know, the front end, if you will, has a brand. You know, and that, you know, it's funny because I travel a lot and I always like to watch the morning news, and it's usually almost always surrounded in car dealership ads for cars, right? So you always have the low price dealer, the no down payment store, the largest selection store, whatever. Those are brands. And so it draws a certain person in. So you set up a sales process to handle that type of person, but they don't do that. And so when you go to that dealership, that group of stores, you'll get the same process, whether it's a Toyota store, Chevy store, whatever. But on the back end, they don't do any of that. They just say, well, we hired that guy. He's a good service guy. Well, he doesn't do it like the guy does your sister store. Yeah, but he's okay. You need to have a brand back there too. And I think that's what we're talking about here. If you had somebody that on YouTube built a brand with their service department company-wide, the first dealer group of any size that does that, because nobody's done it successfully that I've seen, is going to be the one.
I love that idea. Very good point. Good question, David. So I tell you, this has been a fantastic conversation. It always goes so much faster than we anticipate it goes. We're already burned through 30 minutes or so. It's been a great conversation. We've really loved having you on. And I tell you what, I mean, as we kind of progress and we grow our Modern Dealer podcast and the audience, we'd love to call on you as we kind of move forward in time to kind of get your perspective from an expert in ASMs and the service department, and kind of see how this unfolds as we as we travel in time and really see what the modern dealer is, both from a sales standpoint and a service standpoint.
I'd love to talk to you anytime. All you have to do is give me a call and I'll share any thoughts I have, because even though I've done this for 32 years, in my mind,
us too.
Learning every day something new.
I'll be there whenever you need me. And just one point on being around a long time. When you guys said you met each other in the mid-90s, you guys don't look that old.
We're very lucky. Well, I tell you, on that note, we're going to go ahead and get this wrapped up, and we'll definitely bring you back on the show again. And thank you so much for carving out some of your valuable time to spend it with David and David.
No problem, guys. It's been my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity. You guys are great. Thanks for doing what you do. The industry needs you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a good one. Back in episode 036 of the Modern Dealer Podcast. What a great conversation with Jeff Cowan.
Love that guy and love him. It was really good. And the cool thing about the whole fixed operations is it's an area that we are learning more and more about just from episodes of the Modern Dealer Podcast, and of course our time in the dealership, but really digging in deep when we see it from just our dealership's point of view, but to see it from like Jeff's point of view of so many stores he's in and out of, and just touching so many different service departments.
He really is like a rhinoceros in the industry, is he not? not?
He is a rhino. Speaking of a rhino, what a way to segue into my socks, Dave. Great job, David.
Thank you.
With his just very smooth rhinoceros. Now, we have more than one rhinoceros. Is it rhinoceri or that was just
rhinoceroses?
Rhinoceroses.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the big. I brought the white rhino, which is an albino rhino, which is
albino rhino.
Yeah. And then a fuchsia one, and of course a black rhino, which is the most popular rhinoceros in the great continent of Africa. And you could maybe find one at your local zoo. not a white one, but definitely plenty of the black ones are readily available. But yeah, that's my sock game, and I'm sticking to it, man.
I like it. Very good stuff. Very appropriate. So good conversation with Jeff during the podcast. We actually shut the cameras off. We chatted with him a little bit more as well. He's going to send us a couple of his books. He's written 3. He's got 3 or 4 more coming out in and around automotive, IndyCar racing, children's book. So very cool conversation, and we're going to continue to develop our relationship with Jeff, as we move forward in time with the Modern Dealer Podcast. So we're super excited about that. But you know what, David? We're already got a long episode going on, so we're going to move right into we'll do analytics 2020 and then move into your tips. So analytics 2020 for episode 036. I want to talk to you about content groups. So this is a pretty simple process of being able to set these up. So I'll tell you how you can set it up first, and then the value that you can get out of it. So how to set it up is a very simple process. You go into admin, you hit the gear icon down the bottom left-hand corner. You're going to open up content groups from the view on the right-hand side, and then from there you can create these content groups. So for example, you click the new content group, and there's different ways that you can create the content group. So I want you to think about your website in different ways that you can look at the data that's in there, and really in a way that is insightful, right? So you have thousands of visitors going to your dealership website every single month. Wouldn't it be cool if you could find out an easy way to see what is the most popular vehicle types that customers are looking for on your website, whether it's new cars or used cars. Now, you're going to have, hundreds of different vehicles on your site at any given time. Those vehicles are going to be coming and they're going to be going. So it's a little bit hard to track from a per page view because those constantly change. But with the content group, what you can do is one way to utilize this technology inside of Google Analytics is to set up kind of a keyword extraction right from the URL and look for things like new or used, and then the model number. And you can create different content groups based on all the different new cars and used cars from a new vehicle and for used vehicles based on model. So what this allows you to do then is anytime somebody visits a vehicle display page for, let's say, a used Tacoma, or a new Tacoma, or a new RAV4, or whatever make and model that you happen to sell, you can go into behavior, go into site content, go into all pages, and then you can select to view that information based on the content groups that you've created. So hopefully this makes sense. Is you go in, you create the content groups based on new cars and used cars and models, and then you're able to go into behavior, site content, and then look at, quantify what is the top model that your visitors are looking at. Right. So for me, that would be extremely important to find out is where the engagement is, what people are looking for on your website. So for example, did you know that for example, I think I have an example here. This is a Toyota dealership. And this one right here shows that the number one searched vehicle on their website is a new Toyota Tacoma. The second most popular vehicle is a used Toyota Tundra. Would you know that? After that, it goes into a new 4Runner and then a new Highlander, and then it gets into some used vehicles, a used RAV4. So if you can really start to think about where you can get insightful information from Google Analytics to help you stock inventory better, this is just more information to really help you out. So Google Analytics 2020 content groups. If you want any help, you want to have an idea of how to implement this on your dealership website, reach out to me, david@entice.com. More than happy to give you more information about it, but a very powerful tool that is available to you.
That's strong, man.
It's pretty cool, right?
No, that's really good because obviously, just although we did not disclose what dealership, what the location that was, but I'm going to assume they were in truck country based upon the researches, the searches that popped back up. Was I wrong?
No, you are. You are right.
I was right. Okay, so I had no idea what dealership was, but I'm just going to assume they're in truck country just based upon all those searches. So a good thing to help with your allocation or advertising, which actually
100%, right? New cars, used cars. I mean, yes.
Yep. What you're going to put extra money into is like, hey, I think I need to put some extra money in some used Tundras. So
it kind of ties back to vehicle
it.
acquisition, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to the auction now is a very hard way to stock inventory for your used cars. But if you know that you have a ton of people looking for used Tundras, used RAV4s, if you have that opportunity to be appraising that car, whether it's somebody requesting an express cash offer from your website or sitting there in your showroom, you need to make sure that you're raising your hand high because everybody else is as well.
That actually rolls into one of my tips right there. So Bert's 3 tips.
Bert's 3 tips.
Bing, bing, bing. And we got some more bangs and dings, but just to basically as we just segued into that and talking about using the Google Analytics to group your content grouping, that is a great idea to use. A great tip there to use is to see based upon, hey, if I'm going to put more money into a trade, let me do that based upon what people are really searching for in my market. Be one thing. But going back with our guest Jeff, we had talked about having a YouTube channel, and most dealers, farm out their YouTube channel to their advertising agency, and they're like, oh, put our $29 oil change on there. Don't do that. If you can, and it's hard to do at maybe at a corporate store, but if you're a mom and pop store and you have 4 or 5 locations, you should really take one of your service advisors, maybe your senior guy that's been there for years, and make him the face of your service department. May not be your service manager, but maybe that advisor that customers come in contact with for the last 10, 15 years. Make him the face of the store to grow. It's going to obviously help with your retention. It's going to help with retention. It's going to help with your customer pay. It's going to just go a tremendous long way. And continuous, my third tip would be, I don't know how often stores, because it just wasn't my background was when it's obviously in the sales department, but how much continuous training are we doing with the advisors and sharpening their walk arounds, and having a guy like Jeff come in and help train your staff in order to just to stay on top of their game, man, because he said the game has changed so much in the last 12 15 years.
Right? Absolutely
that you've got to stay on top of it, and that if you're not using technology combined with that eye-to-eye contact with the customer,
and really getting yourself outside of what you do every single day. And I think that's one of the things that we get to do now that we're like outside the dealership operation. We're on the vendor side. We're talking with different people in different industries, different dealerships all the time. And it really allows us to have a different perspective. Now, when you're plugging in yourself to the same dealership every single day, and you're dealing with salespeople and you're dealing with customers, and I think that I don't want to say you become blind of what's happening, but
you do.
You just don't have the outside perspective. Now, if you have somebody like Jeff that's able to come in, and one of his team to be able to bring in industry best practices, as this industry has changed so much in the last 5, 10, 15 years, as he said, I think it's a great way to do it, to help you become more profitable, to increase your retention rate, and to just become a much more successful dealership month in, month out. So good point. And I think that kind of goes to another good point too, is, as sales managers, looking at your own sales training processes and your daily processes. One of the things that I did when I was in automotive retail and looking at hiring and retaining salespeople is making sure that training becomes part of the culture at the store, and making sure that you have a very, I don't want to say strict, but very structured process. So you're doing a morning meeting every single morning, that you're doing that walk around training every single morning, that you're doing that trade walk every single morning. It becomes this habitual activity, and I think that those types of things really build the culture of the store around best practices, and I think that really, I don't even know if you can quantify, how much of an impact that has. So a lot of good ideas, good tips from Bert, his Bert's 3 tips, and.
And if you made it with us this far through the episode, well, then you know what? We'll be sure to, if this is your first time you've watched one of the Model Dealer podcasts, thanks for joining us on episode 036. But if you want to check out 037 and proceeding forward, then please be sure to like, share, and subscribe by turning on notifications. Ding!
You'll get a notification every time that a new episode comes out. We record on a Tuesday, we release on a Thursday, and every once in a while we have a couple special edition episodes that are rolling out, like we have some of our NADA special editions coming out right now as well. So with that, unless you got anything else,
put a fork in me.
For David.
I'm done. And David,
that's a wrap.
Ew, David.